British politicians and campaigners eager to stop a no-deal Brexit are stepping up their plans to block the government's decision to suspend Parliament from the 10th of September. One of them is campaigner and businesswoman Gina Miller. She is the person whose 2017 legal challenge successfully forced Parliament to be able to have a vote on a Brexit deal in the first place. She has now filed an application for another challenge in the courts, this time to stop the early prorogation or suspension of Parliament. Gina Miller joins me now from our Westminster studio. Welcome to Impact. And may I ask you first to lay out what you're trying to achieve with your new legal challenge?
The basis of the legal challenge is very similar, not exactly the same, but similar to the first case, in that we're arguing that a Prime Minister cannot use their powers, this proroguing power, to bypass or shut down Parliament to enforce a no deal. So it's we're arguing that the Prime Minister's announcement of this 5-week suspension of Parliament will actually be trampling on parliamentary sovereignty.
There was always going to be a lengthy suspension of Parliament for the party conference season, and Boris Johnson's decision in effect takes away about 4 more days from Parliament in September. So is that such a big deal for you?
That is what they're saying, and it's not actually true, because the MPs would have had an opportunity, and we're already talking about a vote next week, to debate whether or not they actually rise, because it's such a crucial time in our history, whether or not they rise for that 3-week recess. They were going to discuss if they sit throughout the 3 weeks or if they come back for a couple of days a week. So what he has in fact done is almost halve the time, because if they had gone for a full negating of recess, that would have been 35 sitting days. So this idea that it doesn't make any difference is a nonsense. It is not just. What they're doing is going to leave Parliament with just 3 to 4 days to bring in legislation to stop no deal after the 14th of October, if that is what Parliament wants to do.
Now, Boris Johnson and Number 10 are also saying that what he's trying to do is get a reworked deal with the EU, that this is still possible, and that attempts to stop or thwart the government are in effect weakening Britain's negotiating hand, and that your action will do that too.
It is quite fanciful, that argument, because it has absolutely nothing to do with the negotiations in Brussels or with the EU. That is on the international arena. I'm talking about the domestic arena on our parliamentary sovereignty. So the very people who were saying this is what we're fighting for, parliamentary sovereignty, seem to be all very well and happy now to trample all over it and dismiss it. So that again, they are deflecting from the fact that they are misusing their powers. And that's why we're going to the courts to say, could you please tell us, because there are lots of different views, our constitution is very complicated, we don't have a written constitution. So we're saying, look, can a Prime Minister actually do this? Is what he's proposing legal? That is a simple question.
Is your action intended to stop Brexit?
My action cannot stop Brexit. All my action can do is give Parliament the time to debate and decide what it is they wish to do. There is absolutely nothing in this case that can possibly influence Brexit or stop it in the courts. The courts are not there to make political decisions. They're there to make legal decisions.
They may be there to make legal, not political decisions, but we both know that their decisions can have political effects. And those who back Brexit say, look, it's been 3 years. MPs have failed to come to any agreement about the shape of a deal. It is simply time to go, to end the uncertainty.
There's nothing wrong with that argument. And I find it appalling that I'm actually in this position. 3 years afterwards, this should have been sorted out. But worse than that, why I'm appalled to be in this position, and actually the Prime Minister has somehow negated to tell anybody this, but we've been in legal correspondence with the government since the 12th of July. And up until 5 o'clock on Monday evening, they have said legally that they would not be proroguing Parliament, it would be academic, and they themselves believe that it would shut down parliamentary sovereignty. So it's quite extraordinary.
Isn't it extraordinary that you've had to be in this correspondence with the government? I mean, isn't it a mark of the failure of opposition, or isn't it a kind of misplacing of the duty of courts for you to push the courts to make the vital intervention here?
I have to say I'm very disappointed, of course. I mean, what happened 3 years ago has changed every part of my life. It's, I live in fear a lot of the time of what would happen if I just lived a normal life and went out and about. So I've done this with a very, very heavy heart. And you are absolutely right. I don't think it should have been down to me, but in the absence of anyone else, because the MPs are fighting to try and do something in Parliament late in the day, I would argue, in this legislation in the next week or so, that what if they don't have that chance? But I agree with you that there has not been enough opposition in the last 3 years. There's not been enough, if you like, professional behaviour from our politicians in holding the government to account. I do not disagree with you on that.
Gina Miller, thank you for your time joining us today from Westminster.